Look, enough messing around. Indiana needs to hire a big-time name for their next head coach.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm done messing around with it. I'm done piddling around and trying to figure this out. It's really simple for Indiana basketball. You need to make a home run, slam dunk, splash sexy hire for your next head coach of Indiana basketball. Several names we've already talked about, maybe even a couple we haven't. That's what you can get on today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Plus, what type of coach do you need? Not just the big name, but there's something they all have in common, and it's not that hard when you really think about it. Plus, Indiana hosting UCLA tonight, coming off our big upset win in the midweek against Michigan State. Another quad one opportunity steps inside to Assembly Hall. You need a big name. Why? Because Indiana's a big name. And I continue to make people mad by saying that Indiana's a destination hire, that Indiana's a place that people want to be, that Indiana can be successful once again. And I'm not saying it to make them mad. I'm saying it because it's true. Indiana is a top 10 program in college basketball historically. I don't think that's crazy to say. I firmly believe that the numbers would back it up. And you look at what Indiana has right now in NIL funds, facilities, donors, and support of their university, they're one of the best programs, the best schools in America. Because people that know, people that are informed, people that are knowledgeable of the situation understand how big of a job this is because of those things that I just talked about. The main one being your NIL fund. I'm not going to say it's bottomless. I'm not going to say it's endless, but it's bigger than most. And guys that we have talked about on this program before and that everybody's talking about right now would be taking a step up in the NIL category. And I do think big time names could be taking a step up from where they currently are to where Indiana is. And the jump would be the move would be a jump is what I'm trying to say. Guys like Mick Cronin from UCLA, I think that's a step up. You talk about other guys on this list, I think that's a prime example. What about Brad Stevens, a guy that we've talked so much about, one that Indiana went after the last time, who he publicly said, no, I'm not taking that job. But would he tell you no again? I think that's why Indiana needs to make that call. And I think Indiana's in an even better spot financially right now than when they were 3 years ago, going on 4 years ago now, that they made the phone call the first time. And he never coached at a place like this, not in college, right? Butler was great, and he had great players, great teams, Final Four good teams, right? But he never coached here. And he's done great things in the NBA, and now in his organizational role with the Celtics, right? He's done incredible things with them. And it's been 12 years since Brad Stevens has coached college basketball. It's a long time, but I think he would still love to be here. He grew up an Indiana fan. He grew up an Indiana guy. This job has been waiting on him for years and years and years. Think about a guy like Scott Drew at Baylor. Is it crazy to say that I think it could be a step up for him in terms of what Indiana offers, NIL, payment, support-wise? No. I don't think it's crazy because I think it's true. Baylor's been a great job, and he's done phenomenal things at Baylor for a long, long time. But the resources you would have for the basketball side of things at Indiana are greater than they are at Baylor. That's not a crazy thing to say. I put Bruce Pearl in that category as well from Auburn. Would he leave Auburn at this point in his career and his life? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But Indiana can offer him something Auburn cannot. That's more money. More money on his contract, more money on his players, more money on his staff. Indiana's got the resources. And people, I think, have lost that idea because Indiana hasn't been winning consistently in the last 20 years, if you want to grow that far. But really, in the past decade or even the last 5 years, people are forgetting the fact of who Indiana is and the power that Indiana has behind the scenes. That's why we have the ability to talk about names like Chris Beard, who would be a step up in every single category: job, money, profession, you name it. It's a step up for a guy like Chris Beard. That's why we're able to have these conversations about these guys and it be a legit conversation, not just throwing out names for clickbait. I'm not saying Dan Hurley is leaving UConn to come to Indiana. I'm talking legitimate candidates here. And I think there's a specific thing that they all have other than being big names. And we'll get to that and why that's important coming up in just a few minutes. But those are legitimate answers. I even saw, we mentioned it earlier in the week. How about like Rick Pitino? Right? Rick Pitino could get to this level, to this job at IU, which could be the biggest stop of his career. Could be debatable. Sure. He's been great places and he's won everywhere he's been, including right now at St. John's. But you're telling me a guy like him wouldn't pick up the phone? You're telling me a guy like him wouldn't listen to what Indiana has to say? That's the power we hold, folks. That's the power that IU has. When we come calling, people pick up the phone. They answer. Will they take the job? You don't know. You can't find that out unless you give them a call. And when Indiana calls, people stop what they're doing because of the brand, the legacy, and the money. So that's why Indiana needs to go get a big name, splashy hire. And I think you have to. You have to do that now to save yourself, to save your fans, to save your program. If you're Indiana, to pull ourselves out of this hole in this gaping spot we've been in for 2 decades now, since the 90s, you've got to go find somebody. And I think all of those names are legitimate options and possibly some more. But ones that I've seen a lot of Indiana fans and even non-Indiana fans bring up are up-and-comers, assistants, really, really good special teams and coordinator type of play or a type of coaches that maybe Indiana should consider. I'll tell you why that's not such a good idea coming up in our next segment right here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Factor Meals. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with the chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every single week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, which is what I do, Protein Plus, or Keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab-on-the-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor, they take the stress out of meal planning, man. I eat lunch for Factor. I eat Factor for dinner. Not every day, but I would say 4 days a week, I have a Factor meal. And that's what works for me with my schedule running all over the place and calling games and doing shows and podcasts and things. It works out great for me because it takes 2 minutes to heat up and the quality doesn't go down because you heat it up in the microwave. It's still delicious. And as I told you, I do the Calorie Smart option, so I know I'm eating healthy. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege 50 off and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE50 off. That's all one big word to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE50 OFF, okay? 50 OFF at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 OFF to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Welcome back into this Friday edition of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to all of my everydayers, those of you that are here Monday through Friday for this free Indiana podcast to you. It comes out every day throughout the week, bonus episodes at night, bonus episodes on the weekends. And you say, well, how do I make sure I catch all of those? How do I make sure I never miss an episode that you post? Well, I got you covered. It's super simple. If you're listening on audio on your podcasting platforms of Amazon or Spotify or what have you, Have those notifications turned on. Hit the little bell. Follow us if you can. Leave us those 5-star reviews. That makes sure that you're a part of this community on the audio side of things and you never miss those bonus episodes or just the daily uploads, okay? For those of you on YouTube that watch the show every single day, like this video. That helps it get out there. More Indiana fans, more college basketball, college football fans can find this show. Also, if you're not already, I ask that you subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 47 and then 5,000 subscribers, 4,700, and on our way to the big journey of 5K. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. That'll let you get notified every time we post new episodes. Okay, so be sure you do that and leave your comments down below. Your thoughts on the Indiana coaching search as it stands right now. Names you want, names you don't, names that maybe we haven't talked about or considered yet, and the type of coach you think Indiana needs. And that's where I go now, because with this idea of making a splash hire, making the big headlines, right? Breaking news, Indiana hires blank. Indiana hires Brad Stevens. Indiana hires Bruce Pearl. Indiana hires Scott Drew. What do they have in common? Well, other than the fact that they're massive names in the sport of college basketball, they're all proven head coaches. They've done it before. They've won before. They've been to the Final Four. Now, I'm not saying Final Four has to be on your resume, but wins have to be on your resume. But Final Four is pretty good. Talk about those names, Chris Beard, Rick Pitino, right? Those are the guys that we're talking about here. You throw in others, and there are big names. There's a reason these guys are being looped in. Again, it's not just for fun. We're not just pulling these names out of the sky. We're not just dumping every head coach's name in a hat and pulling it out and saying, oh, that could work. No, we're going after guys who have some sort of a tie to Indiana, the school, the state, the area, the Midwest, whatever the case may be. We're talking proven head coaches with big time winning numbers. Because let's be real. For those of you that have kept up with Indiana for 5, 10, 20, 30, 50, 70 years, however long it's been bad here recently. And it's been bad for quite some time. We can't afford another miss. We've had several, even just in the 2000s, right? Just in the 2000s, you've had miss after miss after miss. And even on guys that you thought were going to be good, just didn't work out for whatever reason. Sampson, Crean, Miller, what have you, right? You've had several guys who were like, yeah, that makes sense. This one's going to work out. This hire is the one. Mike Woodson was in that category. He was. Whether you admit it or not, you can deny it all you want to. Mike Woodson made sense at the time. It just isn't working, and it's not working, and it didn't work, which is why he's stepping away. And there's still disagreements on the timing of it and how they're letting all this play out, and that's fine. That debate, it is what it is. But Mike Woodson was not a proven successful head coach, not in college anyway. Yeah, he had won some games in the NBA, but he was fizzling out of the league. And then Indiana jumped on him because at the time it made sense. Right at the time it was, man, we really need somebody that can bring life back to this program, somebody that would make Indiana proud, somebody that would be an easy transition. Oh, how about the former Hoosier himself? How about the guy that was a legend here, that was beloved by Bob Knight? Made sense. But he wasn't a proven head coach at this level, and he really wasn't all that much of a winning coach at the next level either. Let's just be honest here. And then we wonder why it didn't work out, which is also why Indiana cannot and will not, I'm telling you right now, they will not go after an up-and-coming assistant coach. It's just not going to happen because you can't take that risk. You can't afford that, which is unfortunate because I think there's some really, really good ones out there. There's some really good assistants out there on the Auburn staff, on the UConn staff, on winning programs, right? You just can't afford that right now. You can't afford to go get a 30-year-old who has never been a head coach other than maybe some high school basketball and say, hey, here's the keys to a top 10 college basketball franchise. Good luck. We're in a bad spot. We really need your help here. You're going to have to fix this immediately. If not, they're coming for your head. Good luck. Go Hoosiers. That's just not what we need. You need to bring somebody in who knows how to build culture. You need to bring somebody in who can win the transfer portal right now. You need to bring somebody in who can win on the recruiting trail. Because Mike Woodson, I hate to say it, he's tanked it. It's tanked. It's terrible. It's abysmal. Whatever word you want to put in there. We're not winning recruiting battles. We're losing just about everyone we're in. Sure, you've had one or two here and there, but the wins are far more less than the losses, right? Or is that the best way to say that? The losses outweigh the wins. That's what I was trying to say. How many times have we been in the top 10, the top 5, the top 3? It's down to this team in Indiana. It's decision day, and here's the UConn hat. Or here's the Notre Dame hat. Or here's the whatever, Purdue, whatever school. We've lost all those battles. And you can't bring in a young assistant and expect that to change because there's not going to be any trust. There's not going to be any proof. There's not going to be any sort of reputation for that coach to convince kids in high school or the transfer portal to come play here. So what do? How do you respond to that? What do you do to fix it? You go get somebody who's done it. You go get the Bruce Pearls of the world, the Brad Stevens of the world. And sure, there's concern there in terms of NIL and transfer portal, something he never dealt with during his time. But he deals with professional athletes who are making a lot more money than college guys are. I think he'd be okay. But Brad Stevens, Bruce Pearl, Nate Oates, guys like that who have done it where they are or have done it at several places. That's what Indiana needs. And that's what they're going to go after. And if you don't, you're in trouble. I'm just telling you, if you're Scott Dolson and you're Indiana, if you are the university, not just the athletic department, I'm talking the entire school of IU, you can't screw this up. You can't afford it. You've been behind for so long. And if you continue to go down the path you're going for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, you're going to be left in the dust, and it's going to be another 20 years of misery, another 20 years of hell for this Indiana fan base, because look around. Teams are better than they've ever been before in the Big Ten, in the Power 5, in college basketball as a whole. The 300-plus teams that compete at this level, they're better than they've ever been. And Indiana needs to go make that big-time hire, a proven head coach who's a big name, who's done it before, and can do it again. Build up recruiting, build up the portal, build up the culture, and get Indiana back to where it needs to be. So all those names we've talked about, they're legitimate options. Because again, at the end of the day, when Indiana comes calling, people stop what they're doing and they pick up the phone. Question is, who's going to say yes and who does it first? All right, coming up here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast, final segment coming up. Indiana, we're back in action on the hardwood. We host UCLA tonight. Big time game, a quad one opportunity for the Hoosiers. You got it done in the midweek. Can you come home and do it again? We'll talk about that, preview it coming up after this on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to be in on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for an even bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for big multipliers and big potential winnings. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking up a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance, and you're never out of it with the live betting feature. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, final segment here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Again, thank you so much for being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics, as crazy as it sounds, it feels like it was just yesterday. It feels like it was just 12 hours ago. Indiana is back in action with UCLA coming to town for some Friday night hoops in the Big Ten. It's the only game in the conference tonight, as it'll be 8 o'clock Eastern time, 7 o'clock Central on Fox. So the country gets to watch the Bruins, who bring in their 18-7 overall record, 9-5 in Big Ten play. They take on your Indiana Hoosiers, 15-10 overall, 6-8 in Big Ten play. One team's coming off a win, the other's coming off a loss. That's right, your Hoosiers with the big win on the road in Spartyland against Michigan State on Tuesday. And UCLA lost to Illinois on Tuesday. They fell on the road there in Champaign, 83-78. And here's what's intriguing about this. UCLA's in the midst of a 2-game road trip, but remember what we're talking about here geographically. We're talking about a team that came from the entire left-hand side of the United States out west, right, in UCLA in Los Angeles. They flew out to Champaign, played that game in Illinois. They didn't go home, as far as I know. I highly doubt it. I'm sure they stayed out here and are now playing in Bloomington on a Friday night before they go home. So you're talking about a team that's going to be nearly a week removed from its own bed, a week removed from its own gym, a week removed from its own home. And that could play in to our advantage. That could be a major factor in this game. And there's one thing that sticks out about this UCLA team to me. They're extremely talented, very, very talented, and they're very much alive in the Big Ten standings. Here's where they are going into it, right? They are 9-5 in the conference. Depending on when you look at this, it is top 5, 6, 7 in the conference. They're very much in this thing. In terms of winning it in the regular season, they'd probably need some help. But this is a solid tournament team. One that will make a run in the Big Ten tournament and one that'll make a run in the NCAA tournament. And there's something that sticks out to me about this UCLA team that was very similar as the Michigan State team. They can score. I'm not worried about that. They average 76 points a game. They just don't rebound the basketball very well. They only average 32 rebounds a game. Their leading rebounder is a guard. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense now, does it? And it's Kobe Johnson, who averages almost 6 a game. You got Tyler Bilodeau, who's the forward, who averages 4.5. He's their leading scorer with 14. So he's going to be the one they dump it down low to. He's the one that they go to in their half-court sets more times than not. But if you're not picking up what I'm saying here, Indiana's got to feed the big guys. And it's perfect timing because you're coming off a game where both of them just absolutely ate, right? Malik Renew, best game of the year for him. Oumar Ballo got his, good enough, even with the foul trouble. It was interesting, though, because they did it separately. They did it with one on the floor and one on the bench. They hardly ever played together in that game on Tuesday against Michigan State because, again, Ballo was in foul trouble. And so Malik Renew was actually able to take advantage of that, which is weird. But when you think about it, it's not all that crazy because with one big guy off the bench, you've got just one. And Ballo has done that several times this year when it's the opposite, when it's Malik Renew who's in foul trouble. Ballo has taken advantage. I say all of that to say you did it against Michigan State, who I think is built very similarly. Yes, you know what I mean, against this UCLA team. They're built very, very equal. Because UCLA just doesn't rebound the basketball very well. And I think we can take advantage of that. Whether it's on the defensive end or the offensive end of the floor, on offensive rebounds, second, third chance opportunities, kick it out for open threes. I think we have a chance to do that. So again, you've got a 14-point per game scorer. Eric Daly averages almost 12, and Sebastian Mack averages 10 on the money. Other than that, this UCLA team, they're just solid. They're just solid. And how funny is it? Another game against another Big Ten team with a coach that is circling around the Indiana coaching search. Do we hear anything about Mick Cronin coming in on Friday night tonight? Do we hear anything about him? I don't know. Guess we'll have to wait and see. I think this is going to be a phenomenal game. I really, really do. Indiana has a chance to get another quad one win, this time on your home floor. and you need them. We talked about it earlier in the week. You need wins like this if you want to still make a push for the NCAA tournament. If you're the Hoosiers, don't turn the ball over. I think you'll be fine. This team in UCLA, they shoot it okay from behind the arc, not great, about 35%. They do shoot it high as a team. They shoot nearly 80% as a team from the free throw line. Apologies, 70% from the free throw line. So they're okay, right? They're still not a great team. I misread my stats, but overall, this is a winnable game. And it's at home, and you've got momentum, and the fans should be excited. If you play with the heart, play with the energy that you did on Tuesday, why can't you win this game? Why can't you come in and take care of business against the Bruins of UCLA? You can't play bad and expect to win, but if you play, I'd say the way you did for 30, 35 minutes of that Michigan State game, you're going to have a great chance to win. And I want to remind you as we wrap up here, how it all started against Michigan State. It started on the defensive end of the floor. Even though you were down double digits, you locked up defensively, started to force misses, started to force turnovers, and you took advantage of those on the other end. If you can do that again tonight, get some of your guards going, Trey Galloway, Miles Rice, Anthony Leal. I know it's crazy, but I am putting him in there. He's been playing well. Get some shots knocked down from Mackenzie Mbako, stay out of foul trouble, get the bigs involved. I think Indiana can win this game. And if you do, watch out, because the Hoosiers can start to make a little bit of noise. Hoosiers and Bruins tonight inside of Assembly Hall. Be sure you check that out. The Hoosiers have a chance at another quad one win and keep trying to build on that NCAA tournament resume. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much again for being here. It's been a fantastic week on the YouTube channel, on the audio side, and we're hoping that you keep coming back and having a lot of fun, because I'm having a lot of fun, and I appreciate you being a part of it, okay? If you're on audio, as I mentioned, be sure you follow us, turn on those notifications, whatever you got to do to where you never miss a new episode. And for my YouTube watchers, like the video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. All right? We are back with another episode very soon. Full episode Monday. Stick around. You never know what happens over the weekend. All right. So until next time, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.